Hey, this is Rocket Brain Surgeon, and today we're looking at dominating in the KV-5. Rexy sent along this replay, and it is fantastic, not only from a performance standpoint, but also from the educational value. He plays this tank the absolute correct way, and trust me, you're probably not doing it this way because it's just weird. And I suggest you really pay attention and try to put this into your own games. The KV-5 is a Tier 8 Russian heavy premium tank. It's characterized by its incredibly tough armor. There's a weak point on the front, typically referred to as the R2-D2. You saw it right there. It's the little machine gun port. And the gun, which is acceptable but not exactly amazing. It has low penetration at 167, but it has decent alpha at 300. And the premium round at 217 penetration APCR does make the firepower on the tank overall acceptable when you need to deal with hard targets. The map is Serene Coast, and at the beginning of the game, Rexy does say that he is going to go YOLO. He's just going straight because he wants a quick victory, which is kind of the correct strategy in the KV-5, and it makes for an entertaining replay. The reason why it's the correct strategy is because you want to get your gun into the game as soon as possible. You want to bully lower tier opponents with the big armor. Excellent snapshot by Rexy. When your opponent is pulling behind cover, even if you only have like a 10% chance of making the shot, if you don't need the shell right away, then let it fly. Also, something that was happening there, Rexy made no attempt to hide the sides or the rear of the tank. The funny part about the KV-5 is those are actually the strongest points of your tank, and it is not uncommon for a very good KV-5 driver to drive into battle butt first. This works because the machine gun port in the front sticks up quite a bit, and it's very difficult to hide. You can see it there. It sticks up pretty far, and your gun could barely clear over some type of outcropping of building or rock if you wanted to fire over something. However, it's easier to hide the rear of the tank. It's also easier to angle the rear of the tank. You can't really angle something that's circular, but the back of your tank, which is flat, you can absolutely angle it and increase the effective armor to around 200 or more. So Rexy continues to try to get into brawling range with other tanks, trying to bully them with the large DPM and the effective gun. And here on the left there is a water tower, and that water tower, you can see the base of it, that's actually hiding the machine gun port. So the weak spot, the KV-5 is effectively hull down right now. Notice that Rexy is aiming at the lower glacis of the T-29. That's kind of an indication of the 167 penetration is not enough to go through the upper front plate, so sometimes a little more careful aiming is required. And again, ramming right here, ramming. That extra damage is crucial sometimes in engagements. The KV-5 weighs over 100 tons, and even a low-speed collision with another tank can absolutely be enough to cause significant damage to them. This next part looks a little weird. Rexy is putting the building on his right in between himself and the JT and any other enemies over there, just cutting off angles. Continuing to aim at the lower glacis to make do for the poor penetration. And notice wiggling back and forth to try to, and successfully, get the opponent to miss the weak spots of both the commander's hatch on top of the turret and the R2-D2. The KV-5 isn't too fast, so Rexy is showing good situational awareness here by recognizing the JT coming, getting an awesome track shot, and then being able to cuddle alongside the JT, making the JT absolutely helpless. Great play there. And a lot of it is made possible because the KV-5 has a very good rate of fire. So you can land a track shot because you know you're going to be reloaded in just a couple seconds later. The KV-5 is really not agile enough to continue cuddling the JT, so Rexy starts setting up something a little bit differently, reverse angling. That's what I talked about earlier. Leading with the rear of the tank is going to be more difficult for the JT to penetrate than the front. The gun of the JT is going to line up pretty perfectly with the machine gun port, so face hugging a JT is going to be very bad. The KV-5 has almost 1,800 hit points in addition to its great armor, giving it amazing staying power. So now there are multiple enemies, and Rexy hides the R2-D2 behind that house and sets up a reverse side scrape. The other weakest point is the rear of the tank, and so he hides that by that building and offers up a very difficult angle to the Panther to hit. When set up this way, the KV-5 is nearly indestructible, and I recommend that you do this in your games. The Panther just smartly chooses to run away instead of just die there. So the battle in the city is completed. That was a brawl. It was really good. There was a lot of technique there. However, you can't brawl all the time. Sometimes you're just going to have long-range engagements from enemies. And the KV-5 isn't the best tank for that, but there are a lot of things you can do. There are enemies in the distance there, and Rexy puts off a good shot into the distance, a blind fire there. And Rexy sets up the reverse angle again. There are two enemies firing at him, and he's going to pull up the rear of his tank, the second weakest part of the tank, and put it next to a house. This is offering very unfavorable angles for the enemy to shoot at. Here are a lot of things that you should be trying in your games that we saw in this video. 1. Hide the R2-D2 behind cover. It could be a dead tank, it could be a hill, it could be a feature of the map like that water tower base. Try leading with the rear first. Rexy led with the rear of the tank against 4 different enemies in one game, and that's absolutely the correct thing to try with the KV-5. Use that high rate of fire, shoot the tracks, and move into brawling range. Bully those opponents. And when you get there, be sure you finish it off with a ram. I hope you enjoyed. Happy hunting.